And welcome back to WAAAGH Tactics. Today we're here to talk about the rise of the Cunnin lads, because it looks like that Taktiks Brigade is coming to play. So with that being said, let's start with the stats and the facts. So like always on WAAAGH Wednesday, we like to look over multiple winning data sheets, overall how the Orks are doing in the meta as a whole, and just explore list archetypes and designs. So we have Ork sitting at a 56% win rate, 4 players going X and 1. We did not have any GT wins, though you would be deceived to see that the 61% win rate means Orks are mucking up the meta. I think they're doing quite well, but nothing like absurd. It looks like we have roughly, 38 players, I believe that's that number. Sorry, I messed this one up. I should know by now off the top of my head. No, for the players, we're looking at this right now. I should already have this out, guys. Sorry. Roughly only 17 Orks as of the weekend. So that's why numbers can be a little bit deceptive, right? It looks like, oh wow, there's 56% win rate overall. Only 8 of them were War Horde. 2 of the guys going X1. That'd bring up this win rate to look like that. But all in all, I think we've seen the Tactics Brigade still does sit around 50-something% win rate, low 50s, high 40s. Very respectable, very fun. 0 green tide players making their appearance this weekend. Nothing wrong with that. I just think it's a labor thing. Green Tide's a labor of love. Then we have Dread Mob with the 40% this weekend. There is no player that went X and 1 this weekend, but we actually have one from last weekend where they went 6 and 2. So we're going to cover that today, as it was getting a lot of traction online. People wanted to look at it, so I thought we would talk about it because I love me some Stompas. Then we have War Horde still making its strong appearances as well. 2 players going X and 1, 56% win rate. Overall, much lower player base than normal. It looks like there's only 4 people on the 17 Ork players this weekend that went War Horde. So Tactics Brigade has become the most popular. Tell me why you guys think that is. Is it because it's simply stronger, or is it just more fun? We know War Horde's quite inclusive. With the addition of the new codexes that are coming out, is War Horde going to push its way back up? For example, we got Eldar ignoring Overwatch. Is that going to make the Flash Gauge mob less appearing? Are we going to want Fight on Death for Emperor's Children or the Eldar? These are all things that I consider when I'm looking at War Horde. The Bill Bully Boys with only 2 players, 50% win rate. Nice job, guys. 5 wins, 5 losses, 10 losses. 5 wins, 5 losses, 10 games. That's fun. And then we have the Hunt with just a couple players playing the Hunt, and then Cult of Spear with 0 players again. Anybody playing the Hunt, I feel like it's just a passion thing of love, because you could just play War Horde for very similar rules and such. So like to see that it's still making its appearance. Maybe that's a teams thing. Right? So one thing we always got to do is give a shout out to our sponsor, the Baron of Dice, as the Baron of Dice allows us to do our paint competition. So shout out to Baron of Dice and their high quality dice that I personally love to use, and appreciate the community of getting behind us and Baron of Dice helping support us. So check them out in the description, 5% off, because nobody likes taxes. So today, let's start with a War Horde detachment. We haven't seen War Horde in a couple of weeks, maybe we would say. But we have over here, we have Manuel. Maybe I might have said that wrong. Cook me in the comments, as you guys always do when I enunciate things. Open Talvera. So this is, I believe, in España. So in Spain, 95 players, though, quite respectable. One of the bigger events of the weekend that we've seen. They're going for a golden ticket out them get, so it was real. It seems like Chaos Demons ended up winning that one. But Manuel ended up being the number 8 ranked player, going 4 and 1, losing right there in the middle of the pack his 3rd game, which is respectable. It's kind of hard right there on the end of the day 1 when you're like, all right, game 3. But hey, he pulled it out, kept going. So let's take a look at our Gets War Horde list. And he kept it quite lean on these characters. He has a mech, 2 war bosses, and a war boss and mega armor as the warlord with Follow Me Lads. Right off the bat, a bit contentious, right? A lot of the times, if you're going to see some kind of mega boss leader, especially as you can see, he has 5 mega knobs behind him. You're like, this is War Horde. Just take gas. Just take gas. That's the first thought most people will have. As you can see, he chose for more killy stuff rather than gas as the missile. Then we have 3 units of the Breaker Boys, followed by, and they all have the 1 tank hammer. Knob has a smash hammer. Then we have 2 5-man units of flash kits. Yeah, there's a flash kit unit sticking down there barely at the bottom. I promise. It was on the list intentionally. And then he has 1 big unit of Gretchen. Yep, checked him multiple times. He has 1 big unit of Gretchen. Now, at first you think that's weird. It's a typo. On the other hand, you can think it's a bait for Call the Horde. So what happens is, someone pulls Call the Horde. Oh no, you can't actually get rid of that. I can also use this 1 unit to screen my entire backfield. So it's funny because we talk about it, but yeah, we hardly ever see it being used. And it really just looks like that's what he did with it because it was on his list. And in BCP, I'm looking at it right now, the triple, quadruple check. But yeah, very fun. I love that he did that. Here's the kicker. 5 mega knobs alongside that War Boss and Mega Armor with Follow Me Lads. Love Follow Me Lads for these kind of gets because they're slow as can be. Of course, we have Kill Saws and then Power Claws. I love the diversity of choices depending on what you're looking to punch and get stuck in with. Then we have 2 5-man units of Storm Boys because they're almost mandatory nowadays, huh? 3 Tank Buster gets. Now, one of my gets, shout out to Tony, was like, you know what? Most lists nowadays are just running 3 Tank Busters and then fill in the rest. Yeah, it's kind of funny how that's working out. In Warhorde, we're getting that now combined arms aspect. Mind you can still go into infantry. They're blasts, not ideal, but it still works. Didn't pay for the shock attack gun. Surprises me. I find that shock attack gun usually does most of the heavy lifting. Yet he just went all in for 120 points just for that straight unit, though. Just a knob profile. It does have quite some appeal. Does mean it can whiff, though. Does mean it can whiff, but the enemy still has to respect that it might not. Then we have 1 battle wagon with 3 trucks. If you're not paying for the 5 truck spam or 6 truck spam, you can go for a battle wagon in that case instead. Obviously, we love its capacity. We love its durability. We love its staging potential. We love its late game bullying. We love its mid-board presence. Battle wagons are fantastic. There's contention because some people talk about how it's too easy to kill because everything's tuned for killing it in the meta right now. And to a degree, that's true. But 3 trucks, because trucks are fantastic. So with that being said, let's look at this Git's path to victory because I always find that to be quite important. So going into game 1, just 96-point win for this game 1. Our Git is getting in. What's up to chat? Whoa for the chat. You guys all right there. I'll reply to your comments right here in a second. Let me get through this first Git, or at least mostly through. You have the Leagues of Voltan. I'm gonna say their names a little funny, so roast me. Brokhirtan Ironmaster. Einherjar Champion, and then Grimnir. We have 2 Sachitars, a Thunderkin, 2 units of Berserkers, and then what are these? 2 5-man? Yeah, 2 5-man units of the Hearthguard, followed by 2 Fortresses, and then 2 3-man three 3-man Pioneers, followed by a Jaeger Brick. So Jaeger Bricks are the new infiltrators, their version of commandos for 90 points. Ooh, I wish we had some of our boys for 90 points. They do have a reactive move as well. Super appealing. Respect to that unit. It does matter, if you have infiltrators sometime, if where you can get off on these gets, as they're pretty important for the league's strategy as a whole. There are a lot of infiltrating, scouting, setting up layers, dropping down terminators behind them, picking, certain targets and eliminating your missiles. In this case, everything is a super detrimental threat to them. Breaker Boys chewing through them, Tank Busters chewing through them, and then when it comes to skirmish, such as Berserkers versus Flash Kits, Flash Kits have somewhat of an advantage there as well. So this would just be like a brutal just digging them out, right? Leagues of Voltan, a lot of the time they just have to kill that 1 unit or 2 units. There's definitely layers to their strategy, but they're going to grudge in your battle wagon, for example, and maybe a couple trucks or maybe one of your big unit of Breaker Boys, and then they're going to be like, well, here we go. If you give me all that, I can kill it. You give everything else, you stage up, they pop a couple of weapons, and you get all stuck into them. Only 1 unit can fall back, and you're just annihilating them. And this is what we're talking about right now on the meta. When you're going through multiple rounds at events under stress, sometimes people look at these lists and they get frustrated, and I can understand that. You're maybe a newer player or intermediate player, and you're saying, I don't want to run 3 Tank Busters and 3 Breaker Boys. But let's be realistic here about expectations when you're going to an event. You have to play quickly. You have to play in a linear fashion, which damage sometimes is the best linear answer into a meta where people are also being really killy, and you just have to get the games done in an effective way. And also, score high, right? So what we see here is that he ended up getting a 96-point win in something like Leagues of Voltan that could be a gatekeeper to Orcs sometimes. Yet when you really fine tune your list into full damage into something like Leagues, Armor, it's nice that you chew through them. Also keep in mind, Leagues of Voltan typically has like a weird toughness for infantry. Breaker Boys, even running into their infantry, feels good on the wall because they're getting strength 7 on that. So awesome, 96-point win. Got to be aggressive on Leagues of Voltan, though. Don't play that long game with them. They love it. You know, begrudging. What do you think of the Gorkana on Warhorde as a transport to transport this Snagaboss? I've definitely seen that. Not sure about the Snagaboss necessarily. It becomes like a very expensive one area package. Putting like flash kits in there seems to be usually somewhat interesting. Even like a boy unit, putting it from reserve sometimes. But yeah, I've seen it totally. It totally ends up being fun. So yeah, exactly. All the units and transport hurt the grudging tokens. Yeah, because they're like, I just pop your transports to get disembarked, and then you just run up and beat the crap out of them because Leagues of Voltan don't really kill you well outside of their tokens. So they like prolonging the game. Don't let them prolong the game. I love the mech with the Warhorde list. And oh yeah, good point on there. Thank you. The mech allows you to actually use, open top potential here, right? Let's pull up that list real quick, like you were speaking about. Now, it does have a hard case, so he didn't do that for the battle wagon. But keep in mind, he could use the battle wagon to shoot stuff early. But other than that, tank busters, 2 units of them can go inside of a truck, and then the mech can give that truck +1 to hit. So now you're just getting what is it? 10d3 rocket shots out of the truck. So that does require kind of fun, and it does allow your tank busters to hit infantry on 4+. So shout out to you, Jack. I like that for saying that. Exactly. That's why we do this live, guys, so we can all take an eye on this. Yeah, and it buffs the unit, like you're saying, only buffs the model. But yeah, we're talking about truck open top. I'm assuming, don't know, but like the creativity there, and that's what happens if you don't have the SAG. The SAG making it 7 means that your alternate unit in the vehicle has to be, a 5-man. But in this case, it's like, nope, 2 6-mans. The mech sits outside. They peek the corner. He pokes him, runs up, pokes him. That's funny. Or he does it to the wagon, whatever. I don't know, but that's fun. Now we go into this game 2. So next game is Scatter Stars. Star Shatter. Sorry, I messed up the name. Star Shatter Necronians. So they have the Silent King, Technomancer, 5-man unit, Flayed Ones, a unit of Swarms, 2 units of Locust Destroyers, a Locust Heavy Destroyers, 2 Tomb Blades, a big brick of Wraith, Canoptic Spiders, and then 3 Doomsday with the Triac Stalker. Not sure what the mission is here. Multiple ways to approach that army. A lot of the time they do want to kind of stat check, chin check you with maybe like a Silent King or with these Wraiths, but you being able to kind of focus them down, like we just spoke about, where you get maybe your truck full of tank busters, focuses them, blast them from a nice thin, line of fire. That way you don't have to overexpose the whole 10-man unit and getting killed by the Silent King and his indirect. You can actually use your truck as like a mobile bunker to gain lines of fire before you soften things up and charge them with your abundance of breaker boys and, like we spoke about, your mega knobs, which is fun to see as well. Remember, you have mega knobs here. One more thing I want to point out here is that one of these breaker boy units doesn't have a war boss. So I really do like to see how you kind of end up using that one. Very low amount of attacks, so that has to be on the water and to add to really take that unit off. Nonetheless, for Scatterstar, they kind of have to stat check you in the mid table with the Silent King and Wraiths and say, come get me. They have a bunch of attacks from the Doomsday Arcs that's good value for like busting trucks and battle wagons, but it's going to take multiple of them to pop the wagon. So everything else, just stage up, run into them, get stuck in. If you have to play the late game going second, you can do that too. But you can see right here, 87-point win. So great job there, Manuel. I'm not sure how you played it. Wish we had notes, but we don't. It's all good. But here we move on to game 3, where he finally takes his loss. Where it's against Borja. Just made that name. I hope I didn't mess the name up. So he said Mephiston. Okay, he's happy about Mephiston. Okay, so I was trying to read that. Okay, so we have a captain, 2 captains with jetpacks, pretty respectable. Librarian and the Sanguinor. I'm gonna pull up their data sheets real quick so we can all look at them. Then we have 3 5-man units of Assault Intercessor jump packs. I've been seeing this more often on these successful Blood Angels lists that beats Orks. They're bringing like just more small compact units, and that does matter because usually they have big elite stuff and like jump pack 10-man bricks, and you're like, ha, fight on death, I don't trade with you. Now it's not as good as trade anymore. Plus these 2 ball predators. So these little ball predators play a similar role to something like a Land Raider Redeemer, where they walk up to a position and they're like, I do great Overwatch, it's damage 2, and I'm pretty cheap, and I don't care if you kill me. And that's what they kind of end up doing. So they do as assault too, so they can take position with that, I believe. Unit of infiltrators, so hard to deep strike on them. And then we could bring the Sanguinary God. So 2 up armor saves, only T4, 1 led by character. They're -1 to wound. And I think they're -1 to hit as well. I didn't pull up their data sheet, but I can if y'all want me to. Can be problematic sometimes for orcs, but it's really if they just hit us first, which they can because their initiative ability with the Sanguine are helping them out. Then we have 2 units of Vindicators. So a lot of people get contention about the Vindicators. Are they good or not? I mean, they think they're good, but some people are like, I don't want to bring them. They're whiffy because they're a lot of D6. Nonetheless, you respect them because when they go off, they really go off. And they allow you for late game moves with those Vindicators. So it becomes a bit oppressive where you're trying to kill this stuff, trying to kill the Predators because they're throwing away early, and then the Vindicators coming up behind them, jump pack guys staging up everywhere, the Sanguinor dropping out of space with the People's Elbow from space. So let me pull up his data sheet real quick. Boom. So first we have the Sanguinor up here if you haven't played him. Very basic little dude. T4, 2 up armor save, 4 up invuln, 7 wounds, respectable amount of wounds. 8 attacks, heading on 2, strength 6, -3, 2 damage. What's good and interesting about him is once per battle at your end of your opponent's charge phase, if this model is still in reserve, you can select 1 enemy unit that made a charge in this movement phase, set that model up on the battlefield within engagement range. So he just kind of teleports instant transmissions into combat with you face first. Cowabunga. So yeah, me keep that in mind so he could run and help Sanguinary Guard. And get some punches in. I don't think he has the ability where he like just can eat the damage anymore. But yeah. Keep in mind, we're looking at this data sheet. Sorry. The detachment Liberator Assault Group works really well into orcs. We did a video a long time ago about like factions that orcs don't like to play against in like a tier list. Didn't do that great, but it was when this detachment first came out, and I mentioned, hey, Blood Angels aren't that great into orcs, but this detachment is good into orcs because it can get up to strength 6 and you still retain lance. We have a lot of T5. We like to ride that T5 and either the volume. Blood Angels have direct answers to that, which ends up hurting them a lot of the times when they end up playing into Blood Angels with getting like traded out. They used to bring a lot of 10-man units. Now they don't, right? Now they don't. They have these stupid ball predators, 135 points. And then even just basic Sanguinary Guard, 130 points. You know, that's good little decent trade for them. They can get up on you. So we've seen this a couple times. I guess we're gonna have to, check on Happy Crumper and see what's going on with the Blood Angels, huh? Because they've been overcoming a couple good orc lists with these like kind of more mass amount of units, which I think is a good pivot for them. So orc players, be aware of that. He ended up losing that one. Still a good game though. But a lot of things we can learn from that one when we're talking about the Breaker Boys and such. I think someone had an interesting question on this. He said, a lot of bombs, quigs, both turn 1. I don't think that's how that works, but that's weird. Okay. Yeah, so what do the Breaker Boys really do in their strengthened Warhorde that they fulfill that's not filled by other units? It's the point cost that they're at the amount of damage they do. Really stacks up with just volume of threat saturation. So like as we're looking at Manuel's list here, he has 3 Breaker Boys and 3 Tank Busters plus a Mega Knob unit. That's 7 very lethal units that are in small compound packages that are walking around, that are being put inside of transports, and then you have just other stuff around the field as well. So Breaker Boys do just more damage into what's currently meta, currently vehicles and armor. Theoretically, on paper, often they do the work. They do the work, especially on the wall. In Warhorde, though, it's not what they bring to Warhorde, is what Warhorde brings to them. Their real lack of attacks means that they need the Warhorde sustain at like all times. They would love the critical 5+ ability getting off on that. So it matters a lot for them. Now, if you really didn't feel like running Warhorde, you can argue Bully Boys. I've done it before with 2 units. That means you can just activate one on the WAAAGH, let it go off, not really have to deal with being killed, and then next WAAAGH you do it again. But the point is, it's about what Warhorde brings to Breaker Boys, and what it brings is more attacks, more hits, and it pushes them up for the more assured outcome, right? Because they have a really low volume attacks, which means they can whiff. So, and for what the points they are and the damage they do to what's prevalent in the meta right now, pushes them a little above knobs in a lot of cases. But like you said here, we have 7 threats on the table that are punching out vehicles, monsters, elite infantry, whatever it may be. It gets overwhelming for enemies with choices, unless they have the ability to get to everything effectively. So we have game 5 or 4, 5, 4 guys. I'm counting correctly. Okay, chat. Yeah, exactly. 5 someone a 5+. Also cheaper than Breaker Boys and the Snagga Boys and the Beast Boss. Yeah, if they don't have the War Boss. Okay, so we have the Necrons game 4. Again, we have more Necrons on the table. Necrons are like one of the most popular factions in the game. So if you're not familiar with them, if you don't like get to know them, get reps into them, get familiar with them, because you got to beat the crap out of them often. So we have the Necron, the Nightbringer. Necron the Nightbringer, the Catan the Nightbringer, the Silent King, Technomancer, Flayed Ones, Scorpec Destroyer, 2 individual destroyers, Locust Destroyers, a 2-man unit of heavy Locust Destroyers, 2 units of Tomb Blades, a big old fat unit of Wraith, Spiders, and then 2 Doomsday Arcs. So he's brought a little bit more stuff. All these destroyers are more for just like scoring. Scorpec Destroyers are for having some skirmish for 90 points. Doesn't look like they have a character at all. And again, it's all about, he wants to check you with this Wraith unit. He wants to check you with the Wraith unit and the Technomancer. They get a Feel No Pain. They get to regen guys. Which detachment? Oh yeah, there's Scatterstar. Yes or no? Yeah. If this was the, gosh, what's the one that gives them the characters +1 to hit? I'm having a brain fart. They get to regen more often, but in this case they don't. So that means you do have the output when you're dealing with this many Breaker Boys and Tank Busters to actually run through them. They do have only one way to deal with the Battle Wagon in this case, which is the Silent King himself, which means you do have a chance to pace it. The Nightbringer is quite respectable. He's a small, little annoying base, but not a bunch of OC. You usually deal with them a lot of bodies. That'd be something that maybe the 22 Gretchen end up charging into at some point. That could be a big difference. And just the ability that you can kill the Silent King makes the Necron players play a lot differently. It's why they sometimes get automatically just destroyed by Marine players, for example, because they can just, oops, I lost the Silent King early. Game's being thrown at its head. Oh, they're focusing down my big unit of Wraiths, and I can't really do anything about that. I'm hoping things survive. And Scatter Arsenal wants to do a ton of damage. It's like, what are you doing a ton of damage to? The trucks, the battle wagons, and the stuff gets out and you kill a Breaker Boy unit that doesn't have a War Boss. Oh well. Everything else is crumping you and kind of pushing you back into your backfield. So really important there. Is there a Reanimator? No. I don't think I see a Reanimator out here. Is there? No. No. Oh, I see no. The 2 Doomsday Arcs. Okay, cool. He does have like bikes and stuff to help him score, but 80-point win there. On that one. Oops, I can go back. Here we go. All right, and then his last one. So great job by there, Manuel, by the way. Necrons again. Yeah, this is a different list, as you can see. So my boy had to play 3 Necrons at this event, even while winning. You just had to get through them. Whether you're winning or losing, they're one of the most popular factions in the game. Shout out to Wicked Joe for 10 WAAAGH Tactic memberships. Whoa, Wicked Joe. Shout out to that Gip. Always hooking us up, always supporting the channel. Thanks a lot. It means a lot. It's very generous of you. And shout out to you and your great WAAAGH that you've been having going on. And shout out to you at LVO and such. So thank you very much, Wicked Joe. And shout out to the members. It means a lot to everybody that's supporting and what we're bringing forward. I promise you we're working on it. So with that being said, check out Wicked Joe. War Bosses in chat for Wicked Joe. And let's look at this last list, because Wicked, I know you've seen a lot of Necrons. We have 2 Technomancers, a Silent King, which wait a minute, the attachment is same scatter, scatter. Woo, Arsenal. 1 unit of Spiders, followed by 2 units of Wraiths. Okay, we're not getting spicy. 3 Doomsday Arcs, 2 Flayed ones, and then 2 Doomsday Arcs. So as we spoke about, there's 7 threat saturations on the Ork list. As you can see, 3 Doomsday Arcs, 2 Wraiths, and then a Silent King. So they're bringing about 5 to 6 threatening, imposing units. Orks bring just a little bit more. And then they also have all the transports, so they hopefully get the initiative on you and you don't get to crack our durable stuff, right? So it's fun. You can kind of weaken these Wraith units. You can threaten the Doomsday Arcs. You can threaten, people do have luck, not me, but do have luck popping these Doomsday Arcs with the unit Tankbuster boys, even without a SAG. The fact that even can happen means that they have to play different, which means you occupy table space. You get to move up the table aggressively. And mind you, you have the War Boss and Mega Armor with Follow Me, lads. This takes enough attention as well from the Necrons that once you get stuck in on the wall to hold them in position, these guys also can't fall back and shoot or charge or anything. So really just getting stuck and get your hands on them means a lot. So having the dirt damage from the Breaker Boys and the Bustas just means that they have to play defensively and you just take table space and then you just stuff all the boys down their throat, get all the green tide on there on the end zone, start touching everything, trucks, boom, scoring they're killing their scoring units. Don't let them get out of their deployment zone. It means a lot. And my boy Manuel did that all throughout the event because he kept crumping Necrons for an 80.9 point win right there, ending up at 8th place overall at the Open Talavera 2025. So Mike gets War Horde list, mech, double War Boss, and Mega Armor. Follow me, lads. I assume the mech was giving, +1 to the trucks for open top, or maybe the battle wagon +1 to hit, so I can shoot with its small arms and such. It was art case, so he wasn't shooting out of the battle wagon. Maybe helping him with some secondaries. Really low on characters is something I want to point out here that I appreciate because just like any other Ork player, sometimes I fall a victim to I want too many characters. Being able to run a Breaker Boy unit and then all the tank bosses without character support, very interesting. Made him to have more threat saturation and more stuff on the field. Big board presence, screening his entire backfield, throwing all these points forward. I love to see it. Triple breakers, 2 5-man flash kits for some SWAT teams. A big unit of Mega Knobs with Follow Me, lads. Possible, here we go, target here. Possible reserves and then coming in off the table. Possibly Ingress just makes them super fast. It'd be freaking hilarious. 3 negative take buster units, a battle wagon, and then 3 trucks. So I really like this list. Very much appreciate it. Shout out to my boy Manuel. And we move on. No, the Stompa List is back. Zeki Chan. Zeki Chan. Now we move on to Jeff Jew. So our boy Jeff out here turning heads over the weekend, getting really close to winning out the event. So we're going to talk about his Taktiks Brigade list. Let me take down some of these tabs so that I'm not oversaturated with tabs, my gits. What you guys saying in the comments? Yeah, really cool about the Stompa, though. You guys know I love me some Stompas. If you haven't checked out the playlist, you'll know I love me some Stompas if you check out the playlist, trust me. So we have Jeff's run here. So Dice Hammer open, number 8, 43 players. Dice Hammer, high fiving. Xenos Petting Zoo, 4-1. My boy right here lost to someone possibly that he already knew as number 1 Tyranid player by 1 point. Just showing the bag right now, showing it off right now. Yes, he lost to this Tyranid guy who got 1 point on him, but we'll talk about that once we go over his path to victory. But first, let's talk about his list. So he came in with the Taktiks Brigade. So that's triple shock attack guns. The Big Mech and Mega Armor is the Warlord, and he is the Mech Captain enhancement. Absolutely love it. We have Mork's Cunning. Keep in mind, it doesn't work if you're inside of a transport, so you got to be cunning about it. And you can't redeploy back into a transport, so don't be trying to do that. You have God Boomer, usually because people just run out of points. Probably hardly ever comes up, but it can come up. And then 2 War Bosses, boom. Stops right there with points. I think that's where you're just getting to the sweet spot. I think it's about 480, something like that points, or less than that. Sorry. So then we have 2 5-man use of Storm Boys, 5 trucks. Yeah, I gotta squeeze them in there. We had 5 trucks on this list, so we're getting close to the truck spamming, moving from War Horde over the Taktiks Brigade, getting some MSU going on here. I like to see it. We got 2 5-man units of burner boys. A lot of the time, the burner boys aren't like exceptional at doing absolutely anything other than having another unit for 60 points because you can afford flash kits. Boom. For the SWAT teams. Then you have a 10-man unit of flash kits, but burner boys aren't horrible. Just keep that in mind. It's just you're always like, oh, I wish I had some points for flash kits, but you know, flamers, a bunch of T3 stuff, you know, it's respectable. Being able to roll dice to people is fun. Big 10-man unit of flash kits, like we spoke about for the mech captain, big mech, and mega armor. Absolutely love that combo. If you're not using it for your flash kit combo, I don't know what you're doing. 2 minimum size unit of Grats. That way you can screen your backfield. 1 unit of commandos. Funny. When the Taktiks Brigade came out and people were like, we're not seeing commandos out here. It was in the comments on the Discord, not like a ton of people, but a little bit, enough to notice. And they were like, where are the commandos at? Commandos not leading the way. Well, Jeff Jew made sure they led the way again. So yeah, Breacher Ram, Burner Boy, Rocket Launcher, Power Claw. Boom. Love to see it. I think depending on your meta and depending on, you know, the time of armies you face, maybe you underappreciate infiltrate, but a lot of the time in some skew lists or in some high level 40k, bandos make a big difference. It does pay a premium as not an orc player, but it does take some reps to get used to. 2 5-man units of knobs with power claws, and then 3 tank busters that go alongside those shock attack guns, the knobs to go alongside the war bosses. And here we go with a couple SWAT teams and some whoa, this tooth snatcher. So let's take a look at my gets passed to victory here. So you guys trucks for everything. And most likely stuff who we have left over. Yeah, he can even put stuff in reserve if he really wanted to. Tank buses go in trucks, get a couple burner boys in them. Knobs can go inside of a truck. You put knobs together, hypothetically, if you wanted to. Just remember with your commandos, you want to keep them alive. A lot of the time, there are some matchups where you got to be aggressive and take space from people if they give it to you and they're a little elite army. You can kill their scoring points or their screens. That is true. But other times you just want to use them as holding board presence, stopping reserves, and then staging up and then letting them move up as well and participating or coming out as bait, right? So be smart with your commandos. They matter. So going over this path to victory, we have is game 1 going into the Dread Mob. Yes, he had an Orc mirror matchup. So going into Dread Mob, a fan of Dread Mobs, let's see what he had. Bag Mac with shock attack gun, triples baby mechs. Looks like 6 units of small Gretchen, minimum size unit Gretchen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. I appreciate that. Love the Garats. 1 Death Dread with what I like to call the nuke because he's all custom mega blasters. So this gets shooting 12 custom mega blaster shots and then taking a bunch of hazardous tests, especially after you press the button. So if he's alive after shooting and you're not as well, then he's happy about that, right? So takes you guys. I like to call him the nuke. Double Gorkanauts, a unit of Ludas, and then a Stompa. Whoa. Okay, this isn't the get we're talking about this week, you know, today. But I appreciate you for bringing the Stompa here as well. Jeff's a high-level player. Jeff had the tools to take out even something like a Stompa, hypothetically, if he wanted to. But the real point here is kill everything else, and the Stompa just kind of exists. Stompa doesn't kill... you know, it pops trucks really well, but then the stuff that gets outside of it doesn't have anything to do after that. It's not going to run up and charge you, for example. So I absolutely love to see that he had all this. I mean, kill all the Grots for scoring, kill all the big Titanic units, and leave the Stompa to just roam around the battlefield. So you could kill the Stompa, don't really have to. Just imagine that anytime he's trying to move up the field and get aggressive, he gets Overwatch from the flash kits that are hidden somewhere. And then when he goes for the flash kits, then the Gorkana ends up getting taken out. And it's just, oh, I ran out of my pieces. GG. So love to see it. Jeff getting a 97-point win. And shout out to our boy Eric Freeman. If you're around and you see this, we love it. I love you for that one. Then we move on to game 2, where he goes into Imperial Fist. Vanguard Spearhead. Yeah, Jeff's a gamer. Jeff's about that life. So then we're going to Vanguard Spearhead. We have an Ancient Terminator armor. Lysander, which is a Terminator named Captain. He has like a 2-up invuln once per game, I believe, and he gives Terminators additional OC. Librarian and Terminator armor, and then a lieutenant with combi weapons. Sticky Intercessors, Ballistus Dreadnought, double gladiator lancers in big unit of inceptors with plasma. Land Raider Redeemer suppressors. So remember, if they hit you, then you get -1 to hit. That -1 to hit that counts for combat as well. Then he has a Terminator unit, assault squad with thunder hammers, and then a big 10-man unit on Terminators. Now, I'll just say this, not to be rude, but I know personally tank busters with shock attack guns with +1 to hit and blast into a big 10-man unit Terminators means that you have about a 4-man unit Terminators after that if the bombs would go off. Maybe a 6-man if you're lucky, but then I have more tank busters that could easily just, end up going into you. Knobs can help clean up if they really have to. But that's the versatility and potency of tank busters as they kill elite infantry in the meta right now. And they kill the vehicles if they need to. Plus, he does have lancers, but then the lancers are just popping a truck, and sometimes they can even just whiff. You roll a 6 of Binfold, and suddenly your lancer's still, your stupid truck's still alive. So it's awesome. Mega Knobs just do just enough in the Space Marine matchup. Having claws or power claws means you're killing anything on this list. It might take a while, but you can definitely do it. The fact that your Mega Knobs can fall back and charge is something you might appreciate as well in this detachment. And getting reroll. Does he have Mega Knobs? Sorry, why did I just bring Mega Knobs out of my head? Sorry, I'm talking about knobs. I just said Mega Knobs because last list. Super excited. But just knobs in this list. You're excited that they can move up +1 strength, and then the WAAAGH as well to strength 11 means you can kill these vehicles in a way that typically you wouldn't be able to. Like lancers, for example, if you did end up getting them in there for a little 5-man unit. So love it. You have to dissect Space Marines, kill their scoring units, then eliminate their big death ball brick when you get a chance. Feels good. And shout out to Jeff for getting a 99-point win there. You just had all the tools. I'm sure that it was just a good one to get stuck in. Then we have this third game, which is going into Astimitatum Strike Force. So we have Gaunt's Ghost, followed by Lord Sol Aliantis, Platoon Command Squad, and then double Tech Priest Engine Seers. I think they act like our baby mech, essentially, giving +1 to hit, I believe, and healing. So we have 3 basic infantry squads, a Chimera, 2 Basilisks. The thing about Basilisks is they do like debuff your movement, so that gets problematic. Kazarkin, Lehman Russ, Exterminator, double Rogel Dorns, probably with those priests, Scout Sentinel, and then Tempestus Scion Squad. Respectable damage output from here. It just doesn't have the kind of layers that typically guard brings to really punish us. Now, the Basilisks could be problematic if the tanks get into something, they get disembarked, and then they get touched. But it really just comes down to that turn two turns of staging. Did I get where I need to be? Did my commandos take up enough table space that I could find somewhere to safely stage up and deal with? Because this guy doesn't have, sorry, I pulled up the guard list. Doesn't have scouts necessarily. Let me see, just a scout, just a little sentinel, right? Yeah, just a little sentinel. And that could be a funny, not sure, because usually they might, I don't think in the new detachment they don't get +1 anymore. I think they don't guide anymore, indirect. But if you did want to kill this, yelling with the gob, you might be able to actually do it. But like we said, you can't let stuff be outside. That's the big issue here, is the Basilisk could indirect you from your truck. So very cagey as you move up the field. But once you go, he doesn't have the layers. You can just start chewing through them. You actually have the damage to kill tanks and stuff at range, which typically guard doesn't have to worry about. They think we have to run up and punch them. So shout out to Jeff to really pulling this one out, because it's easier said than done. Especially into guard, because they have all the tools. It doesn't have as much layers that it's so potent, and it's not a bunch of scions and Kazarkins deep striking and messing you up in that kind of way where you can interact with them. But it's still respectable guard list with damage, multiple bodies, good OC, indirect fire, which sucks for Orks as a whole. So 79-point win there. Wait, game 3? Is that game 3? Did I jump one? No, that was game 3. Sorry, that was not a 79. It was a 98. So 98-point win there. And I guess he did have Gaunt's Ghost, which I think can infiltrate, but I don't think people would put Gaunt's Ghost into commandos. So then we go into his game 4. I knew I jumped one. My bad. And yes, what's up, Thunder? Whoa! And, so we have game 4, which is the Tau Empire with Retaliation Cadre. So we have Commander in Cold Star Battle suit, Commander in Enforcer suit, and then Ethereal. Light on the characters. means they're not going to have a bunch of those breachers. That's what that means. Shout out to Jordan. A crew carnivore followed by pathfinders, 3x3 stealth suits, Vespid, crew, 2x2 broadsides, and then 1 unit of knife fight, and then another unit of starside battle suits with some Sunforged battle suits, Ghost Kill, and then double Riptides. Goodness, a lot of just mech suits. Love to see it. Now, the ablative wounds in the mech suit mean that your tank busters, for example, don't go so well into them. It does take your full knob squad to like respectably punch into them. But the Tau Empire always is and always will be we focus you and hit you with multiple units, not one unit automatically deletes you. And you can end up kind of leapfrogging a lot of their units if they stage up too close in layers with each other. And with our ability to actually shoot in this detachment means that, one, you can overwatch their infantry and kill them. Two, you can start picking up their screens and popping holes in them, so you can still charge whatever's left over and then swing your orc unit into whatever's behind them, causing them to not be able to move forward. So they are respectable as opponents. Really good Tau players end up, dismantling you and then popping your transports and killing what's inside, because they can like auto advance 6 and shoot you quite effectively. But all in all, orcs do have also the unit saturation and threat saturation, especially when you have 5 trucks and all these threats on this list. The fact that you have burners ends up playing a little bit of a factor when you go into like Kroots, when you go into like Pathfinder guys, stealth suits, for example. You're like, oh, I got flamers. That actually kind of matters. Sure, they have good armor saves, but there are only a couple guys in the unit. You can do a couple wounds to them and then finish them on with some charges. And commandos. Commandos are very important. Like we said, this guy had multiple stealth suits. As we look here, this is how they take up the space on the table to assure that they have reserve potential for their suits and such. That way, you having commandos to make sure you can move up and occupy space, line them up so they can't stage inside of them. Very, very important. So Jeff had to pull that one out with a 79-point win. Oh, I missed right here. So great job by him. And then we go into the last game of the event of the weekend, where he lost by only 1 point, but from what I heard, they were great sportsmen about it. So let's take a look at the Tyranids. So we have Old One Eye, the only character. I love to see it. Very interesting. Biovore, followed by triple Exocrine, 1 Lictor, 1 Maleceptor, and then triple Norn Emissary, followed by 2 Tyrannofax. Boom, that's it. Crusher Stampede. So I do have this data sheet. Let me just pull it up anyways. Oh, I forgot about showing you guys Mephiston earlier. Shame on me. So Norm Emissary, Crusher Stampede. Real quick, if you haven't seen, big issue with this guy is when you're on an objective, he gets a 5 of Feel No Pain and objective control of 15. Ouch. So it really does matter who goes first here. Not the most killy, but he is quite tanky. He is killy enough. I mean, respect him. He gets 6 attacks that are strength 9 -2, 3 damage. Then extra attacks of 4. Sorry, it's 6 attacks. So he gets a little bit, like 10 attacks. I mean, it's fine for a monster. But the real issue here is he also has a 4-up Feel No Pain against mortal wounds. So typically, people would put mortal wounds into someone. Even if he has a 5-up, you're like, 2 and 3 chance I get this through. 4-up means it's like, oh man, bomb squigs and stuff even start to feel not nearly as good. T11 and then 2-up armor save. Now, as for the stratagems that they can end up doing this when they can choose to die and do their mortal wounds, like their death thrashing, so exploding. Also, the fact that they can move through terrain with these big monsters means that typically you would hope to go first with your commandos, run up, stop the Norn from moving anywhere. In this case, he can just be behind a building, so he doesn't have to get shot by tank busters, and then he can walk straight out through that building onto the objective. So he can't just stay on the line and then you use your redeploy shenanigans to be smart with him. He can actually hold him back and hide him. And then he can like reroll hit rolls and something with battle shock. But when they're actually hurt, they end up taking they end up taking +1 to hit, so that helps with their damage output. And then if they're below starting strength, they get +1 to wound. And then they get additional objective control as well. So just a ton of objective control from triple Norns. And then the Tyranno effects work really well. They're rupture cannons, so that's their anti-tank profile. So they are popping like battle wagons quite effectively. That's really their only favorite target. But after that, they're just a big fat unit of OC, 2-up armor save, 16 wounds on those guys as well, followed by the cheapo exocrians in the background. So a lot of guns, a lot of OC, a lot of meat on the objectives. And that's why I call this list Moby Thick. So as for how this, don't have the intricate details, but what do I do know based off how we looked at the score was it came late into the game, round 5. Jeff and Keith, I believe, were both low on time. They were both running through the motions, just trying to get more bodies on the objectives, trying to score more secondaries up to the end. There were still 2 Norn emissaries still alive, so I think it's very important to understand that, yes, you can kill one of those guys, and then after that, you're really just trying to kill everything else that you can to reduce the bodies and scoring potential on the list so he can't score secondaries. Must be pretty nice. I hope it came up. It could be cool that it came up that we can get additional OC by being in combat. Maybe that came into play. But maybe you just stood on the objective and didn't even do that. But what it ended up coming into play is they ran out of time. Jeff did his final move. Both parties ended up realizing that he could have moved the Storm Boys a little bit more and scoring a different secondary and gotten 2 more points and ended up winning. But Jeff was like, no, man, ran out of time. That's just what it is. Shook hands on it. Had a great game. So shout out to Jeff for and Keith for having a great game with that. And I'd love to hear about any more details about that game because Triple Norn, you know, with not a bunch of mass bodies, normally having good amount of boys would help kind of offset that. Norns and such, you know, you're trying to challenge them with a little bit of damage and unit saturation. So them having just a bunch of thickness, it would be really interesting and keen to see. See a lot of move blocking going on, a lot of seeing killing a lot of his weakest scoring potential units best you can, and stopping him from just being in certain positions so he can't score, because no way you're chewing through all of this effectively enough, even with a nice respectable 3 tank busters. But I bet you do appreciate that Knobs can actually like punch something like an exocrine. I'd love to see it, right? Giving him +1 strength. You're like, yes, I can get you. Whoa! And you just run up to an exocrine and punch its head off with 5 knobs. Like, damn, I was waiting to do that. Cheap 135-point monster under points. So shout out to Jeff Chu and his Taktiks Brigade list with 5 trucks. Keep in mind, you know, 3 trucks in a wagon go just quite well. Also, you can end up running that too. So he has Big Mech and Mega Armor with Mech Captain. Absolutely love it. Triple shock attack guns. One has Mork's Cunning, one has God Boomer. 2 War Bosses, 2 Storm Boys, 5 trucks, 2 Burner Boys, 1 big brick of Flash Kits, 2 small units of Gretchen Commandos, 2 5-man and knobs, and then 3 units of tank busters. Shout out to Jeff getting 2nd place. Whoa, for the Cunning Get. And speaking of Cunning Gets, be a Cunning Get and check out our new order markers that are in our store. So shout out to you Gets being cunning. Help you guys get all the orders on the table nice and clean for all you Gets to get stuck in. Now we move on to the last, but certainly not least, the Dread Mob Stompa List. So we're here, boys. You made it to the Dread Mob. Mr. Hugh. Mr. Hugh with his Stompa. So I'm a big fan of Stompas. Check out the playlist and everything if you haven't seen it yet. So we did cover this event, which was, gosh, this is the Uprising and Adelaide. Did I mess this up? Gosh, last night I got cooked in the comments for this. All right, so we covered this, which is our Aussie friends, and we covered Ashley Cross, which is the other Ork player there. But Hugh shook up the internet a little bit as well by bringing the Stompa. So let's talk about the Stompa real quick. So we got on his list Boss Nikra, Zagra Warsnaga, 2 Big Mechs with shock attack guns, 1 mech, 2 10-man units of boys. I like that. A big unit of Gretchen for Zod. 5 minimum size units of Gretchen. I like that he's just bringing more stuff. What's up, Joe Romuel? A big 2 10-man units of Ludas. Spain is bringing custom Mega Blastas. 2 Storm Boys, and then the Stompa, followed by 1 truck. 1 truck just to probably shook around that shock attack gun that ignores cover. You could put the other one in reserve, for example. You can put it in the Stompa if you really wanted to, because you don't want to have to deal with like ignoring cover maybe. Nonetheless, I like that he went for more stuff. In my runs with Stompa, I tend to just bring more either thickness saturation of like another Titanic unit, or I bring like a lot of kilocans, something weird. But I've seen a lot of success with people bringing more Ludas, Dakas, and then a lot of just small units. The one thing to remember with your Stompa is control the space around your Stompa, as he's likely to get killed at close to mid-range, if not just straight up combat, than something far away. So a lot of time people are really worried about your Stompa getting alpha striked on turn 1. Marines can do that to you. Their armies can do that to you. But in all those other army situations, having a lot of grots, stuff that can stand around, and then Ludas that can shoot people down range and continue the threat saturation of, hey, maybe my Stompa popped your transport, but now my Ludas can still reach down there and finish you off. And then absolutely Zod is an absolute definite choice. He's absolutely amazing and necessary when you're running the Stompa and Dread Mob itself. Reactive moving 12, protecting the Stompa, or just running up and stealing someone's objective, pushing and controlling the table space so the Stompa can continue to move is absolutely magnificent. And then boys, so you can sticky around, sticky your natural expansion, sticky the mid table, sticky your home, sticky the natural expansion, and sticky my home, the mid table. That way someone goes there and you charge with your Stompa. There are maps where you can charge with your Stompa, all right? Not always, but there are. So I love to see it. And then one truck, like I said. And then we got Konichiwa for Benito, 13-month members. So shout out to the members real quick. Yeah, and of course you need Zod. You know that. Jay. So let's take a look at his path to victory. I know he lost his first 2 games, but still, after that, guys, winning 6 games in a row with the Stompa regardless is respectable. All right, respectable and a good time. So let's get through the couple rough patches, and then let's see. So he said Knights from Timu. Yeah, of course he is. So you're gonna see this a lot in the meta. People just running a bunch of Custode Dreadnoughts. Very linear. Kind of simple, fun to pilot. No shame. I have Custodes too, and I'll have a lot of Dreadnoughts. I'm just saying that's why you have to be familiar. So we have a Blade Champion, a Telemon as a character with a 5-up Feel No Pain, 2 Cladius Grav Tanks, a Warden unit, 2 Prosecutors, 2 more Telemons, and then triple Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts. I believe I have the Telemon right here real quick. So pretty low toughness, deceitful, but mind you, they do have a strat when you're being shot at. So you subtract -1 to wound. So in a weird way, shout out to what was it? Transhuman Physiology kind of reminds me of that, because you're T10 and you're like, I was already wounding on 3, so it's like always 4s pretty much. Yeah. So mind you, he has that, and then when you look at the Telemon, he has -1 damage from an attack. A little bit of shooting, respectable fighting, and damage 3. 4 Benvuln, 2 wounds. He's like a little bit more points than a Redemptor Dreadnought. Quite outrageous. Quite outrageous sometimes when you really think about it, but it's okay. We're used to that in 40K. And the fact that you can make these guys more effective at fighting, have more objective control, actually helps offset the fact that they're quite elite and you run out of assets. You would think the Stompa would do well, because the Stompa would be like, heck yeah, I could just pop each one of you Telemons even with all that defense. Because it's true. Stompa is absolutely destroying one of those Telemons, right? The issue is the Gatling gun, which is typically quite effective, the super Gatling arrow. If you want to know how to use a Stompa, I have videos about this. A lot of it, I promise it works. Here we're being proven again. Shout out to people who should doubted it, but stop it. The super Gatling, typically when you're popping big shells for bigger gets, and then it's going into maybe, let's say, something like a Baby Knight or a Gladiator Lancer, there's a chance that just because simply it's a 3-up armor save, that you can get a couple fail wounds in there when you wound him and do maybe 6 damage, sometimes 9 damage, whatever it is, just off the Gatling gun, which is volume of hits as an Ork player. So you can maybe even spread fire. You can put the Mega, you could put the super rocket, maybe the Gatling, into one vehicle, and then use the Def Cannon into another. The issue is, because the nature of what the Telemon is, you probably just put the Def Cannon and maybe even the rocket into the same one, or you just throw the rocket into one and another target and hope that you get lucky. But because they have 4-up invulns, they could just kind of tank it. They're quite effective for points. Like I said, the Telemon is about the same amount of points as something like a Space Marine Redemptor Dreadnought, but it has an invuln. So you got to keep that in mind, and then just threat saturation. And the other units on this list are the Ludas. Ludas can't do any damage to the Dreadnoughts as they have base 2 armor save. We know that's their main weakness. And then the Gretchen are kind of just getting dog walked and ran down. And Lily Pad, the Dreadnoughts can advance and charge, advance and shoot and charge. So you're just giving them kind of leapfrogs, and nothing can like deter them other than the Stompa. So the right move from the Tricusto player would be just kill all the scoring things. That's why sometimes I like thickness saturation. So you guys try it out and let me know what you guys think. Which archetype do you like better? More Daka with your Stompa or more just stuff? I like more stuff. I like punching, but I'm biased. I like punching. I just do. Then we go into, did I just click my boys list again? I did. So now we're going to the second game. A lot of people like Daka, so no shame on Daka. I'm just saying I'm a real just punching orc kind of guy, dude. Even with Tank Busters, I'm like, oh, I can punch though. So then we have his next game was against Leagues of Voltan, which is an army that, again, if you went to an event, you might get gatekeep you. Maybe it's not the best army in the world, not the meta breaking, but it can catch you off guard. And you not knowing its rules is why you lost. So we have 2 units of Einhir Champions and then a Grimnir. 2 units of warriors. These warriors can break apart into 5-man units. You can put all the special weapons on one 5-man unit, and then all the guys with another 5-man unit, and then throw them inside their transports or Sagittars. So they fill a bunch of Sagittar space. So you have 3 units of Sagittars. These guys actually do have good anti-vehicle weapons, I think, as well. I feel like pulling up a Sagittar data sheet. They have the L7 missile launchers and the Sagittar missile launchers. I might pull that up in a second. Also, oddly durable for transports, just T10. 2 units of Berserkers with their Feel No Pains. Of course, keep in mind the mole launchers can be a little annoying too. They're indirect fire, and if they hit you, then you kind of can't move. Not too potent because they hit on like 5s or 6s, I think, with that. Then you have 2 units of these Hearthguards. Now, Hearthguards are actually deceitfully really good into something like Zod, for example. Leagues of Voltan can pop strat for plus 2 sustain, double sustain. And then they have grenade launchers for blast, and then they'll oath you. So they'll be hitting you, not their oath, grudging you. The grudging, right? So they'll be wounding you on 2s, hypothetically, anyways, because they'll offset your Zod -1 to wound. And then they'll sustain twice into you. Mind you, when they get out of fortress, a land fortress, they get to reroll wounds. So if these guys focus on Zod, they can boom, just pick up Zod in a way that you're not really used to as an orc player when people just eat one of our mobs. It will take all these Hearthguard, but then that means the rest of his army can continue to shoot the other chaff on this list that, again, isn't too effective at killing it. Then we have 2 units of fortresses, followed by 2 units of pioneers, and then a Jaeger unit, which means he can even hold back your Zod unit, not let it get up good table spacing. So Ludas go off. They hope to kind of kill you, but if he wanted to, between the pioneers, the deep striking, and then the Sagittars, it's like he can kind of run down the rest of your list as your Stompa slowly is like popping their Sagittars and their land raiders, and then their land fortresses, and then they're like, oh, I gotta wait now for the next turn to kill what was inside of it, and then that stuff just goes and kills your stuff. So yeah, that's I find a lot of value in having punches for stuff like that, but also those guys have weapons to kill Stompas and big stuff, so it's easier said than done. But after that, Hugh said, enough of this, going on a 6-game win spree. Love to see it because he held firm, and then he went on a huge win path, which is greater than anything I've done with the Stompas. So my boy, going into game 3, goes into Chaos Renegade Raiders. So we have Abaddon Despoiler, Chaos Lords, Master of Possession, Cultist, Legionnaire, 1 Rhino, 1 unit of Bikers, a Land Raider, a unit of Chosen, Forge Fiends, 2 units of Havocs, Possessed, and then Warp Talons. So here's where we talk about the things that we can kill with Ludas. Ludas absolutely love to go toe-to-toe with some Havocs, would go toe-to-toe with Legionnaires, Bikers, And in that case, a shock attack gun could pop a Rhino, for example. And then the units that are coming around to deal with the Stompa, like a Forge Fiend or something like a Land Raider that would be very important to this list, just can't stand up to a Stompa. These are the kind of tools that he really does have to kill with. So he's fine-tuned for killing like Space Marines. Ludas are really good at that. And that's what he's showing he did real well here. Because you're hoping they have that one vehicle that wants to check you, unlike Leagues of Voltan, where they're like, we have multiple of these guys and we have Sagittars. You can't pop all these transports, we'll take up all the space. It's like, oh, okay, oops. Space Marines don't have that. They have just a Land Raider usually as their vehicle. So Stompa's like, ha, gotcha, pow. Then we move on to his fourth game. So his fourth game, after a 95-point win against the Chaos Space Marine, we go into his fourth game, which is against Hypercrypt Legion. Everybody loves Crump and Hypercrypt. Chronomancer, followed by Nightbringer, Void Dragon, Hexmark, and then 2 basic Katans. Awesome. 2 units of Immortals, 1 big 10-man unit, which is going with the Chronomancer, trying to take advantage of critical 5+, I believe. 2 Deathmark Destroyers, 1 Doomsday, and then 2 Locust Destroyers. This is all about, can my 4 Katans hold the line, right? Nightbringer, Void Dragon, Satans. Now, they are really small. So that's the part, is like the Stompa trying to get to them. Like, where you gets at? But how Big Shells for Bigger Gets works, and how subtracting and adding damage, the order of how that is added is the Ludas, or sorry, the Stompas, something like the Gatling gun, for example, goes from damage 2 to damage 1, and then it goes back to damage 1 if I use Big Shells for Bigger Gets. So then it's just damage 2, and you're putting volume on them, and you're wounding them on 4s, so you can end up just chipping that down, put multiple on different units. Ludus assist you in picking up Nightbringers in that case. Grots will just hold the line with OC and start flipping objectives on them. Do have to be careful of the Immortal unit and the Immortal plus the Void Dragon going into a Stompa. They could hypothetically get lucky, but very, very, very unlikely. Boys for Sticky makes a difference in this too, and having more OC on boys, as they're like having to try to chew through all of your OC while you're flipping objectives, and your Stomp is picking up all their durable units that want to stand on an objective. So that'd be a fun game. So great job there. In the fourth game, 93-point win there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we go into his fifth game. So just chewing through people with the Stompa. And then we have Death God. So another fun killing Marine army. I love to see it. So we have 2 units of Death Guard Terminators and Sorcerers, a Mortarion, and then Typhus. Morty is getting slapped by a Stompa 10 out of 10 times. 10 out of 10 times if you put all your weapons into him and you pop with the proper CP and you keep 1 CP in the pocket for re-rolling the amount of shots on your main gun and your damage, you're awesome. So then we have a Cultist unit, 2 units of Predators, 2 units of a Death Shroud. 3 units of Death Shroud. Ooh, excuse me. 3 units of Death Shroud, and then 2 units of Floated Bloat Drones, followed by 2 Brigands. Respectable list. Very respectable Death Guard list. This is what Death Guard players would consider one of their competitive assets. The Terminators can reduce damage by 1. Typhus can lead one of those other Death Shroud lists. The Predators will allow you to... this is a play company. You can get additional AP and reduce someone's armor save, so you can put a bunch of good, efficient Predator Destructor volume of fire from these tank platforms that sit in your backfield, and then Death Shrouds that are just great infantry. Yet this dude's just like, that's fine. I'm still murdering Morty, and then I'm murdering each Death Shroud. And if you can get up and charge, you're crumping everything. Once you just kill Morty, and I'm telling you, I have gotten to the middle of the table with a Stompa before, not uncommon. You're just like, sure, dude, I'm just killing all this stuff. And it matters. So I will say it does get a little questionable on what your Ludus can shoot at, because a lot of this stuff does too have a 2-up armor save. So the one that ignores cover can have a chance to kind of help you finish something off. You probably end up killing the drones, chipping down Brigands, maybe kill a Predator. You want to look for anything that's on an objective opportunistically, really. So Luda's right there, 89-point win. Love to see that. So much DACA, GZ. Yeah, right. The Death Guard player probably was freaking out. Like, what the heck is this, bro? Like, what the heck? Stompa, like, just the proper profile to just annihilate me. Because that's a respectable Death Guard list by all means, and what they would consider a respectable try-hard list. And he was like, yeah, nice spamming that one data sheet. That's not working here today. Not working here today. So then we go into his sixth game, because that was his fifth game, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're watching, I probably just clicked that 5 times, right? Then we move into the sixth game. Boom. Oh, it just looked that way. It was just another unit of Death Guard. All right, so now we have another unit of Death Guard. So we just said right now, Death Guard army. Here comes his next matchup. So his game 6, because look, here was Jordan. So you guys were watching. So we had Jordan as his game 5, and then if you go to his next game against Alex, his game 6, he had Death Guard again. So let me get rid of some of these tabs real quick because it was messing me up. I was like, am I still clicking Death Guard? And I was. So for this one, he still has 2 units of sorcerers, but now he has Lord of Contagion and Mortarion, followed by Typhus. 2 units of cultists, still 3 units of Death Shrouds, max units, 2 bloat drones, and then 1 Poxwalker units for Morty, followed by 2 brigands. Almost identical list, very similar, which means a very similar outcome. Where he goes, Morty's actually not respectable at all in durability, and after that I'll walk into the mid table and tank your army and you'll just not do anything about it. And it was fantastic. Love to see it. That was a 6th game, so let's see, it's 78-point win there. Love to see what the mission was on that one. And then we move on to his last 2 games. So now he's on a streak, boy. He's on a streak with the Stompa. Then we go into his 7th game, which is against Adeptus Mechanicus. I don't know what the Helo Creed battle Clyde does. Could have looked it up. I would have forgotten before I watched the stream, before we started the stream. So we got Call, Skitari Marshall, and then 2 Manipulus, 1 Ranger unit, followed by 2 Vanguard units. So they do have good data sheet abilities. As for, I believe, taking away your OC by 1 from, I think, the Rangers. So that's pretty respectable. And then we have 2 units of Doom Crawlers, followed by 1 big brick of Electro Priests. These guys are kind of cool. I think it's like 2 double sustain 2. 1 unit of Cataphrone and Breachers. Onager Doomcrawler. Absolutely love this thing. Onager Doomcrawler. Pretty good into Orks. 2 units of Sky Stalkers, 2 units of Infiltrators, some Rust Stalkers, and then 2 Disintegrators, which is like their most effective gun platform. They just don't have the tools to deal with a Stompa, in my opinion. They do have a lot of units, which I could see being problematic if they have correct target priority, like if they go for all your grots and all your looters real quick. But in reality, they want to stick the Disintegrators and firing lanes, and the Doom Crawlers and firing lanes, because they want to get that heavy, and they want to stand still, and they want to shoot you kind of more effectively because the AdMech doesn't shoot that well. They want Balasaria's Call as his kind of murdering aura where you can give reroll hits. Means that they were trying to come out and have a gunfight, and they're not going to win that against a Stompa, because Stompa is just picking up those tanks quite easily. Like I said, if you check out the video how to use the Stompa and then how to use Zod, and you can see he could just run up and flip primary objectives with Zod when he calls the go turn. Grots run up and start charging a bunch of units. AdMech can't fall back and do things. So things would just go downhill for them quite well. And then Ludas do well into killing any of their units or being a good Overwatch unit. So love it. 93-point win there. Sleeper, how you have tools. He had really good tools into like Marines and like those low toughness armies or just slow armies that want to take the damage. But the couple armies that are like good combined force, that was a little bit of an issue. Or in the Custodes aspect, it was like a skew where it's like Stompa was the only thing could kill everything on the list. Then that sucks. Then we go into this last game, which was against the Blood Angels. So we have Mephiston, Commander Dante, Phobos Librarian, Combi Weapon, and the Sanguinor. So I was supposed to show this earlier because it's supposed to be a good useful get, but I have Mephiston data sheet I was supposed to show earlier. So Mephiston's a kind of get. 4 up, Feel No Pain, T5. Notice how he's T5, everybody else T4. That's kind of cool. 6 wounds, 2 up armor. Say, why does he have Terminator armor? He's a librarian. That's weird. And then a 5 up invuln. He's also a lone op. If someone tries to fall back, but they got to take a leadership test, or they remain stationary. Fights quite well. He shoots quite well with his psychic potential and D3 attacks, and then he is eligible to advance in charge. Pretty cool. Who does he lead? Does he lead him? No, he's lone up. He didn't lead nobody. Why did I even ask that? So anyways, we and the Sanguinor, the guy who jumps from space into you, which is hilarious. We have Intercessor and then 3 units of assault jump packs everywhere on Blood Angels nowadays. Ballistic Dreadnought, Infiltrators, 2 Infiltrators, Reavers. Reavers are cool. You know, they make you take battle shots, I think within 3, and then turn off your OC, I believe. Or they just make it -1 within 3. I gotta check that again. They're pretty cool. 1 unit of Sanguinary Guard, 1 unit of Scouts, and then 2 Vindicators. Respectable list like we've seen as well. Now, Vindicators, when you pop Armor, Contempt, and Smoke, they can pose a little bit of a problem to a Stompa. So we'll take most of the Stompa's commitment to kill it, but it's still killing it. Still killing it if you're popping the CP investment on this. And if you pop one of those Vindicators, he doesn't really have anything to deal with the Stompa anymore. He just has to kill the rest of your scoring allocations units and your small units that you have. So the mission would matter a lot in this one because he normally does have the ability to get into them. Can the Stompa run up and play the middle of the table? I would like to know these things because he got a 91-point win. Only way I've seen that is when I can actually get my Stompa up the field. And so in this case, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking he did on this game. So shout out to Hugh with his Stompa list running 2 10-man units of Ludas, 5 minimum size units of Gretchen, 2 10-man units of Boys, which I'm sure were very useful for scoring sticky objectives, getting in fights. 1 basic mech to act as your Stompa caveat, Snake Route to score for you. Loan up, just jump around the battlefield. He's very important when you're playing like a Green Tide, or even sometimes just Stompa version because you need something that can score for you and be really small. And then Zagrot Wartsnagger. He's like an auto take, in my opinion, in this detachment. So shout out to Hugh for your Dread Mob and your Stompa run. Very respectable. Whoa! For the Stompa. You guys thought I was playing when I was talking about how I like the Stompa when the Codex came out. Go watch those old videos. And people were like, nah, man, the thing's unplayable. That thing sucks. 800 points. I can't even get it on the table. And I was like, trust me, you guys can play and win games with it. You're not going to win an event necessarily, but you're going to do well. You're going to have winning games, and people have been constantly doing it since the Codex drop. So if you got a Stompa, put it together, start using it because it's actually playable right now in this edition, right now at this time. Don't waste any time getting stuck in lands. So with that being said, there's more to come. We're working on after action reports. We're working on getting a terrain sponsorship setup. That way we can have some official, really good GW terrain that we can use for all our tactic videos, which are coming up soon. So bear with us and thank you for supporting us as we do this. And it means a lot. Of course, shout out to the paint competition that's coming up at the end of this month, February, which will be Flash Gets. I'm going to try to incorporate a little bit of lore conversation there to make it more fun, spicy, and open conversation there about Flash Gets. Let's get some knowledge about our lore on this channel as well, guys. We're not just all about the gray plastic. And of course, like I said before, check out our markers for orders and tactics. I personally put them on some small, like 25 mil bases and use that as well, or just put them straight on the table as you see here in the pictures. So if you just don't feel like getting prints, you don't feel. Also, keep in mind you can color with either a dry erase or a crayon on those letterings, and then it'll become that color. And then you can just wipe off the excess, and then with the paper towel, boom, it works. So if you don't feel like getting stuff printed or you don't feel like making it yourself, check it out. Support the channel. We appreciate it. So with that being said, that is not a problem. Having to bring a Stompa with a car seat for your babysitter, you need a car seat for your Stompa. That's not a problem. First of all, he's big enough to just buckle that, get in. All right, just buckle him in with the seatbelt. You're fine. And then if you're worried about him and you bring a car seat, that's fine. Now you have a car seat, dual purpose. You're getting more use out of your car seat. Stompa's secure. There's no loss here. So love hearing it. Now you just want me to bring my Stompa. I'm gonna bring it tomorrow. All right. So with that being said, there's always one thing to keep in mind: is don't cross our wall because we'll not get T-foul.